morning. It is Thursday, March 26, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, Saudi Arabia has pledged to use 100 warplanes and contribute 150,000 soldiers to the newly formed coalition in the attempt and battle to save Yemen. Amnesty International, an organization known for its criticism of Israel, releases a report on Hamas's lethal targeting of Israeli civilians. And later on the show, when mobsters get old, we look at what happens when godfathers turn into grandfathers. Good morning, I'm Yael Avi, and we begin with Yemen and breaking news out of there, where Saudi Arabia has pledged to use soldiers and force in an attempt to save the recognized leadership of the country. Also, conflicting reports emerged yesterday about the whereabouts of embattled President Abdrabbu Mansur Hadi, with some sources saying he fled the country, while others claiming he was in hiding but still in Yemen. One thing is certain: the leader, which most of the world recognizes as the legitimate ruler, is no longer in control of Yemen. And in the face of massive onslaught of Houthi rebels backed by allied military forces that are pounding on the gates of the port city of Aden, where Hadi is making his last stand. Now, in what seems like a response to the recent developments, Saudi Arabia is reportedly moving heavy military equipment, including artillery, to areas near its border with Yemen, according to United States officials. And with the risk of full-out sectarian war breaking out just days before Tehran is set to sign a nuclear framework agreement with world powers, we are glad to have I-24 News senior Middle East analyst Ali Waqid in studio. Ali, good morning. Let's first take a look at the following report about the latest developments in Yemen and break it down from there.
Fighting in Yemen intensified Wednesday as Houthi insurgents approached the southern city of Aden. The rebels, allegedly backed by Iran, seized the military airport on the edge of the city. Reports suggested that unknown aircraft fired a missile near the president's compound. Earlier, there were also rumors that President Abdrabbu Mansur Hadi fled the country, but a top aide said he was taken to a safe haven within Aden. Due to the latest developments, Yemen's foreign minister called for urgent intervention in his country ahead of the Arab League summit set to begin next Saturday. This plea comes just days after he asked neighboring Gulf countries to step in to stop the Houthi advance.
We have requested this military intervention for the sake of speed, because the time factor is not in anyone's favor, especially not those behind constitutional legitimacy. Any emergency intervention now will be less costly and lead to a good resolution.
Saudi Arabia moved heavy forces to the border with Yemen. However, Saudi sources said military build-up in the border is purely defensive, and experts said it is unlikely the Gulf countries will take part in this conflict.
Many Yemenis do not stand on the side of the Houthi armed forces, but once the Gulf states get involved militarily, it may force them to side with the Houthi armed forces.
The crisis in Yemen began last September, when the rebels took over the capital Sana'a, seized the government, and forced Hadi to flee to Aden. Now, when rebels are advancing on those southern strongholds still under government control, it seems that the whole country is falling into their hands.
In studio with Ali Waqid, I-24 News senior Middle East analyst. The breaking news overnight is mostly the Saudi involvement. Before we continue, this is what the Saudi Arabia to the United States, Adil Al-Jubair, had to say yesterday, late last night, when it comes to the Saudi involvement now and what is becoming a fierce battle over the future of Yemen. Let's have a listen.
As I mentioned, this decision did not come lightly, and this decision was thought out very deeply, and we have consulted very closely and very intensely with many of our allies and partners around the world, and in particular the United States. We have had very fruitful and very productive discussions with the U.S., and we are very pleased with the outcome of those discussions. And I would like to just leave it at this and have you talk to our American friends about the details of how they see it from their side. But overall, we are extremely pleased and extremely appreciative of the support that we have received from our allies around the world, and in particular from the United States.
Ali, in 2009, when Yemen was facing something similar, the Saudis were trying to get involved, as you mentioned to me shortly ago, in the ground battle, and were receiving a lot of criticism from the Western world. This time, and over the course of the last several hours, we're seeing some kind of an agreement for the Saudis to take a role in what is happening in Yemen right now, right?
And plus, the result was not at the best of the Saudis in 2009. It was the Houthis that pushed the Saudis back to their territories.
Let's make sense of what's happening in Yemen on the ground just right now. What's going on this morning?
What's going on is that the Saudi Air Force, with participation of some Arab countries from the Gulf, are striking targets of the Houthi group and of the forces loyal to the former President Ali Abdullah Saleh. For the moment, we are hearing that the Saudis are excluding any possibility of ground intervention, but already some Arab countries, Jordan, Sudan, and Egypt, but also Pakistan, expressed their readiness to participate in ground operation in order to guarantee that what is happening in Iraq or in Syria will not be repeated, meaning that the international coalition are striking from the air, but on the ground there are no serious, significant change. The Islamic State is still there and Al-Qaeda forces are still there. We should pay attention, Yael, to the terminology used by the Saudis, which is a very politically correct terminology. They are saying that we are here to fulfill the demand of the legitimate power in Yemen. We are here to help Yemen to face both the Houthis militia, but also Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, meaning that it is not a Saudi-Iranian war, and this is not a sectarian Shiite Sunnite war. This is on the formal official level. On the media machine of the Saudis are explaining that this operation aims to stop the spread of the Persian influence and the Persian taking control of the region. They are not even using the word Iranian. They are using the word Persian
as an empire.
Exactly, as an empire, as to strengthen the Shiite nature of the Iranian, and to say we are fighting non-Arabs. We are a coalition of Arab states that is fighting a non-Arab threat that is threatening to take control over a very strategic Arab state.
Two things. I mean, this has just gotten the level of it's just gotten the level of the battle between, let's put it as it is, Saudi and Iran into another stage, right? In many ways. And in many ways, this is now the battle of the control over the Middle East between those two countries. What can the U.S., I mean, I'm looking at the Saudi ambassador to the U.S. making this very politically correct statement saying, we have the Americans backing, we have the Americans backing, we have the Americans backing.
Yeah, the Americans were deeply involved in Yemen. They were preparing, helping, supporting, training the Yemenite army to face Al-Qaeda. They have a huge amount of intelligence information that they put at the service of the Saudi Air Force and Saudi allies in this operation. I think for the first time we saw Syria, we saw Iraq. In Syria and Iraq, the Saudis financed and helped and trained forces on the ground, like the Al-Nusra Front or Sunni tribes in Iraq, some even a close organization to Al-Qaeda. Here the Saudis are directly involved. They understand that if Yemen falls, it's not Iraq, it's not Syria. It is the beginning maybe of a domino that will contribute in the collapse of some other region in the Gulf in the hand and under the control of Iran. This is why the Saudis this time were very determined, and in the Arabic, the name of the operation is Asifat al-Hazm. It is the storm of the determination and like of the resolve that we are very determined not to let Yemen fall in the hands of the Houthis and of the allies of Yemen. Now the question is technically whether the Houthis are prepared to this kind of situation, keeping their control on the ground and surviving airstrikes like what is happening with Islamic State in Syria and in Iraq, that they are maybe weakened by the coalition airstrikes, but their rule on the ground is maintained and is not really changed or seriously threatened. And we are going to see whether the signs sent by the Saudis and their allies that there are already armies, Arab armies, ready to act on the ground. The Egyptian army, by the way, the Egyptians Iranians are putting their navy prepared for this operation. We know that if the Houthis would have taken the region of Bab al-Mandab, which means that Iran will have an access straight to the Suez Canal, which means that the whole strategic geopolitical situation in the region will be changed if the Iranians will have significant access to Bab al-Mandab and the Canal Suez region.
Well, this is just up the level of the conflict regionally in so many ways, but as you mentioned, it seems like they're not letting Yemen fall, so to speak. But we will be updating on the story throughout the day.
What will be the Iranian reaction
to this? No, definitely. What will be the Iranian reaction? As mentioned, as the clock is also ticking on Iran meeting with world powers.
Because some reporters are talking that Lebanese Hezbollah is operating in Yemen, helping and training the Houthis rebels. It will be very interesting to see the political but also the physical reaction of Iran.
Of Iran on the ground. Ali Waqid staying in studio with us. Thank you for this report. We'll be following Yemen throughout the day. Moving closer to home, still in the Middle East, Amnesty International releasing a new report today detailing Hamas's illegal targeting of Israeli civilians during and leading up to the 50-day war with the IDF, Israel's military, this summer. The report accuses armed Palestinian groups of war crimes and of endangering Gaza's own population, well known for its often criticism of Israeli actions in Gaza and the West Bank. In this report, Amnesty calls on the Palestinian authorities to bring the perpetrators to justice and end the use of indiscriminate weapons such as unguided rockets. We are still joined in studio by Ali Waqid. Let's first take a look at the following report and break it down from there.
Unlawful and deadly. This is the accusation aimed at Palestinian armed groups for their actions during this summer's war in the Gaza Strip. With much of the international focus on Israeli violations, Amnesty International released a separate report Wednesday detailing what it calls indiscriminate attacks on Israeli civilians between July and August 2014. 6 civilians were killed in Israel, hundreds more wounded, and civilian property damaged by Palestinian militia. The report details 4 cases investigated by the human rights group of mortar and rocket attacks by the armed groups. These incidents have not been examined by any domestic Palestinian inquiry, and Amnesty wants this to change, calling on the relevant authorities to examine such cases and bring suspected perpetrators to justice. The human rights organization says the conduct of Palestinian armed groups, including firing from residential areas, is not only a violation of international humanitarian law, but also endangers civilians in their own jurisdiction, the Gaza Strip. They cite the July incident in the Al-Shati refugee camp, which killed 11 children and 2 adults, apparently as a result of a rocket fired from inside the coastal enclave. According to international convention, unguided rockets that kill or injure civilians is a war crime. The use of imprecise mortars also marks an indiscriminate attack, including the shell that killed 4-year-old Israeli Daniel Tregerman at his home in Kibbutz Nahal Oz. Palestinian officials who attempt to justify rocket attacks regularly point to violations by Israeli forces, whose assaults had a devastating and so far irreparable effect on the Strip. But as this report concludes, crimes by one party cannot justify crimes by its opponents.
We're also joined in studio by the Director of Amnesty International in the UK, Ms. Catherine Allen. Catherine, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. And also by Kibbutz Kfar Gaza resident Elinor Barar. Elinor, good morning to you. Still with us, of course, Ali Waqid, I-24 News Middle East analyst, senior Middle East analyst. But Catherine, I want to start with you. You know, many in Israel, and we're not going to take sides, we're going to try. Many in Israel have welcomed this report, saying that it's a long time due to take a look at the other side. What sparked the look into the, you know, the misconduct, and I'm putting this mildly, of Hamas doing Operation Protective Edge, and what sparked, you know, the birth of this report?
Okay, so at Amnesty, when we have looked at the situation in this country and in Gaza over many years, we have reported on what Hamas and the Palestinian Authority have done. So this isn't a first report. It is one of a series of reports over many years where we have commented on that. This one is about what happened last summer and looking at the rockets and the mortars that were fired from within Gaza by Hamas and armed Palestinian groups into Israel. Israel. And what we say as Amnesty is that sending those mortars and those rockets into Israel, they could not be targeted on military installations at all. Those put civilians at risk. They were being launched into civilian areas, and civilians were killed, and civilians were at risk through all of that. And quite clearly, we say in our report that that is a war crime, and that the people that were responsible for that need to be held to account. And we then go on to talk about some of that. But we're very, very specific that what happened was wrong, that it is a war crime to launch into a civilian population rockets and mortars in the way that Hamas and other armed groups did.
Now, there's also a report coming out of the Israeli side when it comes to the use of children inside Gaza, or the use of children as human shields, which is very controversial when it comes to, people looking at the Palestinian arena. But I want to start with Eleanor. Eleanor, you live in we're still trying to get somebody on the phone from Gaza, but Eleanor, you live on the Israeli side of southern Israel on the border with Gaza. When you hear a report as such, and we've spoken a lot throughout the war, and I know your feelings about it. When you hear a report as such, what would you like to see? First of all, I'm assuming you're welcoming it.
Oh, definitely. I agree, and I welcome it because I think for the first time there's someone who's out of Israel that said out loud that it's been a criminal war and somebody needs, to deal with it. And from the other side, this is where they put their citizens in risk. And in the other side, they're using citizen as a citizen, both sides, as a tool. And then, we just want to live our lives. We just want to be there as families, as both sides.
Both sides.
Both sides, normally.
Both
and
sides, yeah. No, but it's it's this aftermath of the 50-day war between Gaza and Israel over the course of the summer that is not going away, actually. And we are also joined via Skype from Geneva by the president of the International Association of Jewish Lawyers and Jurists, the former head of the Justice Ministry's International Department, Advocate Irit Kuhn. Irit, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for being with us. And I know that you are actually in Geneva with a film that your organization has created regarding the use of children, am I correct in saying that, by Hamas during the last war?
This was only part of our thing. This was a side event because the association is an NGO in the United Nations. It has the right to make a side event in the Human Rights Council, but the topic of the side event was human rights in the Hamas itself. We did not relate to the relation between human rights between the Hamas and Israel. We wanted to emphasize what the Hamas is doing into his people. And for this, we brought a journalist, a well-known Enrique Zimmerman, who had many, many hours of discussion with the Hamas. We brought Bassem Eid, who is a Palestinian and has friends and knows exactly what's happening in Gaza, and a member of our association who made a big investigation, a big inquiry about human rights in the Hamas. One part of it was taking children and using them in the war, not using them only in the war, but now they are training thousands of children to fight in the war, to put them in this cycle of fighting. We don't have to emphasize it, that this is a completely a terrible human rights abuse.
No, definitely. And Irit, I want us to take a look at a bit of that film before we continue here, both Ali, Catherine, and Elinor. Let's have a look at the film you were discussing and the one that you were actually showing in Geneva just now. Let's have a look.
تعلمنا كثير في هذه المخيمات زي التفكيك السلاح الأجزاء المعينة فيه وخشينا هذه كمان المخيمات احنا حتى ننهي العدوان الصهيوني من هذه البلد ونصل الأرض المحتلة القدس ونحررها بإذن الله.
Irit, still with us. Has this, I'm assuming this has already been shown. What are the reactions to the information that you brought over to Geneva?
People came to us afterward and told us that this team that we brought should go all over the world and show the truth. It was really not a propaganda because our association is a legal association. And we wanted to show, I heard just a little bit before, I came into when I started to talk about the people who were used from both sides. I don't know if you can call it both sides, but we showed by our Palestinian friend Bassem, that while the last dispute in Gaza, like the last war in Gaza in 2014, people wanted to go out of homes after they heard that they should evacuate. and in many places, they were not allowed to leave their homes. So when we are talking about a regime that is looking at really using his people in order to show that there are so many victims afterward, I don't know how to call it. And I said, listen, we have to, that in this respect, Israel proposed in the war to have a hospital field out of the border there in order to help the people. We didn't want the people to be hurt or etc., and they refused. We heard it from people that came afterward to have treatment, medical treatment in Israel. So we just wanted to show, this is just a small part of what was going on. It was like 2 hours. There were very interesting questions. We talked about financing the Hamas without a control, because, for example, Switzerland right now suggested to give money to the Hamas. And we emphasized, we said, we are for transferring money in order to build the houses, to help the people. But you should control it. The money goes to other things. And that's what we wanted to show.
But Irit, you're staying with us. Please do. Ali, I want to ask you a little bit about Hamas. And I have to also mention, I think, Irit, you will agree with me as well. There's no discounting the fact that the hundreds of children that died in Gaza, I don't want to put responsibility on anybody, but there were horrific also bombings from the air of the IDF, and with so many casualties. And, there was the onus usually lies on the leaders, but also those are the facts on the ground. Ali, Hamas, okay? This report that's coming out of Amnesty, the very interesting bits of information coming from Irit Kuhn and the jurist. Hamas's reaction to all of this would be what? Sadly, we couldn't get them on the phone.
This report was also used in the internal Palestinian fight or conflict between Hamas and Fatah. The Fatah media appreciated the report and tried to use it for its interest. Hamas, of course. What Hamas is saying that nobody in the world takes the reports of Amnesty International, especially Israel, seriously, and that never.
That's what Hamas said, Catherine, not us.
And that Israel during history never give any importance or try to fulfill what was in the reports of Amnesty or other NGOs or human rights organization. This is why they don't think that this report is different from any kind of reports. According to Khalil Haya, a member of Hamas leadership, this report is a proof that the Israeli counteroffensive against the human rights organization succeeded, and that the UN instances and organizations like Amnesty felt obliged to present the other side. And they are, he called Amnesty and other organizations to supply Hamas with well-guided and sophisticated arms so they can target militaries and rather than civilians. And what the Gazans are saying, that they are inviting Amnesty and others to check the topography of Gaza and to see whether Hamas can fight from outside areas that are not populated by civilians. And they say that the use of civilians as tools is the Israeli expertise, and that Hamas was not almost touched in this war. It was the civil infrastructure that were hit, and the proof is that Hamas military wing is ready to a next confrontation.
Catherine, I want to ask you, because I think it's easy for each side to always discount the importance of Amnesty International when it serves their purposes. But we're sitting around this table, and I'm assuming both myself, Ali, and Elinor want to know, when a report as such comes out, and it goes both ways, how can it be implemented? What is the hope of this?
I think there is some hope, and I think the interesting thing now is that the Palestinian Authority has signed up to the International Criminal Court. And our view at Amnesty is that one of the reasons why these things happen again and again and again is that nobody is held to account. Now, by the Palestinian Authority, which includes Hamas, these conversations took place with Hamas too when the Palestinian Authority signed up to the International Criminal Court. What we will have is potentially an investigation by the International Criminal Court into what happened in Gaza. That includes what the Israeli government was responsible for and what Hamas and armed Palestinian groups are responsible for. And I look forward to that day. I look forward to a day when we get international justice looking at what happened, who was responsible for what and who needs to be held to account. Because for us, that's the way to stop this happening again. And without that, and neither Hamas nor, I'm afraid, the Israeli government have domestic mechanisms and domestic systems of justice that are bringing people to account. So until we see the International Criminal Court there, we won't see any progress. And I think that, the Palestinian Authority signing up is a huge step forward, and I think it is to be regretted that the Israeli government is putting sanctions upon the Palestinian Authority in the sense of return tax money, because that is, we should be encouraging this. We should be encouraging the means to get to what happened and how can we make sure this never happens again.
Irit Kuhn, I'm assuming you're still with us in Geneva, Sally, in the short time we have, and I still want to speak to Eleanor. I know that's something that you are actually pushing yourself. Well, actually, you're saying that Israel should also be involved in international investigation, aren't you?
If we have a short time, I don't want to touch it because I have a lot to react to what the person there, I don't know her name.
Amnesty International, Catherine. Okay.
I came late, I'm sorry. So I have a lot to say about it. We have a lot of investigation. There was now a public report of 20 generals concerning how Israel behaved in the war, and they were in complaint to the army that the army leveled the thing that they would be asked afterward for Americans to behave the way that Israel behaved there. And the ICC, it's not, I'm an expert about it, it's not such a simple thing. The ICC is going into places that the country themselves cannot investigate. Now, there is a very deep investigation this time, very deep investigation. And I don't want to say what people are feeling or knowing when it comes to places that general people from different countries are taking place of. Right. Israel is very suspicious. And yesterday, it was proved when we came to the Human Rights Council, people came to us afterward and said that the picture that they're getting is really false. So if it would be a complete objective investigation, I would support it completely. My experience coming from different countries, being involved in it, is unfortunately different.
Okay.
But of course I support everyone against violence, etc., because everyone who is going away from us, it's terrible, whether it's on the other side or on our side.
Understood. And Irit, no, you're rightfully so. There's a story we'll touch with you again, but Elinor, I want to go back to you because you live there. Because you're the one on the ground. There is a report that possibly Gaza and Israel, actually Hamas and Israel, might be signing or looking into a 5-year ceasefire. That's the one thing you're looking at, aren't you?
Definitely. I'm looking for 5 years. And we just had a joke outside, and I said, I'm waiting for 5 years, yes, but I'm waiting for a peaceful holiday. We're coming, Pesach is coming in next week, and learning in the past few years that every holiday, every big Jewish holiday, something happened. And we're just waiting for a nice, peaceful vacation for the kids, nice holiday for us, no running to shelters. And I just want to say one more thing. As my professional life, I'm a camp director. Right. So when I'm looking at the kids, this is what they did in their camps. My heart is, it's breaking. It's awful, and
we got 10 seconds.
I cannot guarantee that there will be a ceasefire, but I can guarantee there is a very serious Qatari mediation between Israel and Hamas to conclude this 5-year ceasefire.
Which I think is one of the most hopeful things that I've heard over the course of the last week. Even, we'll take 5 years, we'll take 5 days. People, thank you so much for being with us this morning. When we get back, the Arab Joint List starting its move to help citizens they're concerned about. We'll take a closer look. First, though, the news. Good morning. It is Thursday, March 26, 2015. I-24 News. Thank you for staying with us. Hello and good morning. And why? Because Ruthie Sinai is here. I-24... I'm looking for more. I think that, there will be a morning where I will kiss you on the air. Promises.
Yeah, really.
Ruthie Sinai, with the news you missed while scanning the headlines, what do you have for us today?
I have something which is really not funny, and it's everybody's worst nightmare, I think. It turns out, as the New York Times tells us, will come up in a minute, and others tell us, that apparently the voice recorders from the cockpit of the crash of the plane that crashed in the Alps indicate clearly that the pilot had left the cockpit for some reason and then could not get back in. You know, he may have gone to the bathroom or whatever, but the recording clearly indicates that he's knocking on the door and trying to get back in, and the door, you know, either doesn't open or the co-pilot who's inside doesn't open it, or
something happened.
And then the descent starts very rapidly after that.
Jesus.
You know, to the point where it crashes.
You know, social media this morning and is filled with it. Everybody's talking about this report. Social media is filled with, you know, is this a result from this mechanism that was instituted in airplanes after 9/11?
That the door automatically locks.
It automatically locks, so not to let people, so not to let them, you know, terrorists in.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, everybody reading this morning is just the terrifying moments for the people on that plane.
That's exactly what I'm sure everybody's thinking.
Yeah.
You know, what was going through people's minds.
Nothing more, to look at that. Well, yeah, moving along.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of strange things, although not nearly as strange as that story. So, you know, if you remember, you know, Netanyahu during the election campaign, Israel's prime minister, has, you know, had been talking about Israel's right to build anywhere it wants, and accusing Tzipi Livni of the rival Zionist Union Party that she was against construction in Jerusalem and so on. And lo and behold, a week after the elections, we find out that Israel is apparently freezing the construction of 1,500 housing units in a suburb of Jerusalem, which is
very controversial
suburb, because it's on land that the Palestinians want for their future state, and Israel claims it's you know, Israeli, and the reason it's strange is because it comes after all this, you know, months and months of you know, Israel's insisting that it has a right to build. But the other strange thing is that the Prime Minister's...
As part of the platform of the campaign of Prime Minister Netanyahu,
of course,
you should mention.
Of course, yeah absolutely. And denigrating his rivals for being against it. And now it turns the Prime Minister's office is saying, we didn't know anything about this, it's not us. And the Housing Ministry is saying, talk to the Prime Minister's office, and everybody's, you know, throwing the ball every which way.
Rolling the ball, to the other side of the court.
You know, it definitely looks like all this international criticism has somehow gotten to Netanyahu or somebody around him.
So, yeah, there's just so many things. I think somebody there realized there's so many things you can do to piss off the
there's a limit. There's a limit
to aggravating or offending everyone.
Exactly.
Okay, yes.
In Thailand, on the other hand, they think that there should be a limit on press freedoms. And the head of the military junta is saying, as we can see here, we'll probably kill journalists who don't report the truth. He's got a specific newspaper in mind. It's a newspaper that's Thai language. It's called Matichon. And they are accused of siding with the former prime minister, who was Thaksin Shinawatra, who was ousted from power. And he says, don't think I don't know that your writing is pro the previous administration. Obviously an astute fellow.
Right, yeah, okay.
So anyway, you know, I mean, he's known for having a bit of a big mouth, but nonetheless,
I hope the statement doesn't come true, so to speak, but it's probably, you know, kill journalists who don't report the truth.
Obviously
we knew the profession was dangerous.
Yeah, you didn't know to what extent.
Yeah, but this takes it to another level.
I suppose that's why the Islamic State has been... No.
Okay. Yes, one more.
All right, one more, and this is really sort of to put a smile on your face, although. So Dolly, who is less than 3 years old, she'll be 3 next week, sets national archery record in India.
How old?
She's 2 and 11 months. Now, the deal here is the following. Her brother was India's the coach of the national Indian archery team.
Right.
And he was killed in a road accident. And his parents decided they wanted, you know, another kid.
Her to follow in his footsteps?
They went through surrogacy. She couldn't bear, the mother couldn't bear, so they went to a surrogate. And as the father says, you know, we groomed this child, this Dolly, from the womb to be a national archery champion, and they got her special.
That's her score? That's what we're looking at is not an illustration?
No, it's from a distance of 5 and 7 meters. She scored 200, I think it is.
As a parent,
200
I would
points.
be horrified if my 2.5-year-old would be able to aim that way.
Yeah, it's really incredible.
Wow. Where does one, how do you progress from there?
The father says, by the way, when we came to know that the baby was on her way, we decided to mold her as an archer. The preparation started when she was in the womb itself.
I wish they could give me the technique so I can, I just want to mold my child to take a bath on her own. That's one of my plans.
No Guinness Book of Records.
None of that. Just do that on your own. Ruthie Sinai, thank you so much for being with us this morning as we move along. Moving on to the next topic, representatives of the joint list of Arab parties and social activists are about to start a 4-day march from unrecognized Bedouin villages in the Negev to the Israeli president's residence in Jerusalem, hoping to raise awareness of the hardship in those communities. To further discuss this, we're joined in studio by Plus 972 magazine journalist Chagai Matar. Hi, Chagai, good morning to you.
Hello,
before we break it down, let's take a look at Gabi Weiniger's primer on the history of the Bedouin land struggles and why this march is beginning today, and break it down from there.
The Bedouins of the Negev have been roaming this desert for over a millennia, but their way of life is about to be changed, drastically and forcefully.
We stand against the government of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with his decision to throw us out from our lands, in which our forefathers have lived on before the time of the Turkish Ottoman Empire, and after the Turks, the British, and after the British, the State of Israel.
More than half of the some 160,000 Bedouins in Israel live in unrecognized villages, which the state refuses to provide with a planning structure and place under municipal jurisdiction. This means living without proper access to basic services, including electricity and running water. Many also live in extreme poverty. Over the years, Israel has used a variety of measures to pressure the nomadic tribes into relocating, including issuing demolition orders to entire communities and razing individual structures. The plan? To consolidate thousands of Bedouins into one single town. But the EU and the UN oppose the Proa plan, along with the Bedouin, who say they don't want to live in a modern-day reservation.
Go live now to I-24 News reporter Uri Shapira, who is at the starting point of the march, the unrecognized Bedouin village of Wadi Naim. Uri, good morning to you. You're there with the marchers. What are they hoping for? Where is this heading?
Good morning, Gail. Well, the march has just begun a few minutes ago. The attendants of this rally are hoping to raise the issue of the unrecognized villages. And with us today is the head of the Regional Council of the Unrecognized Villages, Mr. Fadi Masmara. Mr. Masmara, what are you trying to achieve here?
Well, we are trying to put our issue on the table of a real discussion in the next Knesset. As you know, our villages are unrecognized for now, right from the beginning of the establishment of this country, and we're still suffering this neglection from the authorities in every aspect that you could think about in the people's daily life. And also, you have this threat of house demolition that occurs here every day. We are talking about 46 villages which are unrecognized. There is something around 100,000 inhabitants in these villages, and these people are suffering the lack of every service that you are could think about.
Now, the state of Israel tried to relocate some of the Bedouin. What do you think about this attempt?
Well, this attempt is the wrong thing to do. You don't need to relocate an existing village which have such like this village. We have 15,000 people living here. Why should you relocate them if you can just give them the services and the infrastructure that they need in their villages? Why should you relocate an existing village? What's the purpose of relocating people?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Massamra.
And Uri Shapira, thank you for Shapira, thank you for being with us this morning. You'll be following the story throughout the day for I-24 News. I'm joined in studio by Plus 972 journalist Chagai Matar. Chagai, I want to ask you, because this, first of all, the Bedouins plight, a very, very important one. We're talking about almost 250,000 people, approximately.
Right.
But this is also the first attempt of the joint list, which many people refer to as the Arab Party, so to speak, and which Prime Minister Netanyahu, no other way of saying it, warned people are going to vote in these last elections. But Ayman Odeh, their leader, is actually behind this initiative, right?
Right. He said Ayman Odeh has been active against the Power Plan and the House demolitions in the Negev for a very long time, even before he was elected as head of the Hadash and the Joint List. He's been active on this issue for a long time, and he promised throughout the campaign that this would be his first move to put this on the agenda as the most problematic issue of Palestinian or Arab citizens within Israel. These are those people in the unrecognized villages who have absolutely no infrastructure, and he promised throughout the campaign that this would be the first thing on the agenda. The point of this march now is to reach the Knesset when it is sworn in. So they're kind of bringing the voice of the Negev, of the people living in these Bedouin villages into the Knesset, and like symbolically, and also after that, once the Knesset is sworn in, actively through attempts of legislation.
Now, seriously, looking at just this point of the Bedouins as one of the parts of the plight of the Bedouins as part of the agenda of the Joint List, at the end of the day, how much power, you know, everybody was talking about the Joint List gaining so many mandates, 13, 14, it is the third largest party, it's still not that much. How much power will they have to put on the table issues as such that, if we're being honest, are probably not top of the agenda for the Israeli government?
Not only are they not top of the agenda, the agenda of the Israeli government that is supposed to be sworn in soon is actually exactly against what they're promoting. The previous government, the one before that, the one before that, all governments have been trying to demolish these villages and move the Bedouin population, relocate them into small new townships. It should be mentioned that this is not the first time. In the 70s, hundreds of thousands of people were concentrated within new towns that were built by the state. And these are the towns that suffer from the highest levels of poverty and unemployment to this day. In some of them, there are not even zoning plans. So there are house demolitions even within the new recognized towns. So when the government comes to these people and says, we are going to relocate you to a town, they're going to say, okay, but we've seen that already failed. You did that with other people. You're still demolishing their homes. You're still not giving them infrastructure. They're still suffering from poverty. And on top of everything else, the government is also trying to promote building new Jewish villages on top of the planned demolished Bedouin villages. So it's not as if it doesn't want villages in those places, it just doesn't want Arab villages. So they're saying, okay, you can't do this. So it's a chance that not through Knesset, but perhaps through either a surprising coalition within Knesset or by legal steps, they will have some kind of an effect.
I mean, one would think, I'm assuming legal factors. Veering aside, very important issue, and I want to remind people again that there's approximately 250,000 Bedouins living within Israel, considered, civilians of the country. But that said, when the Joint List, and you're looking at Ayman Odeh making good on his promise, so to speak, throughout his campaign, and already organizing, the Bedouins to start marching, but the opposition that he's been going into when it comes to the Arab civilians of Israel, what can they do to promote within the current environment, to promote their status and their rights within Israel?
Well, I think that the act of this march is, on top of saying this is an issue, it's saying we are going to utilize popular democratic voices within society for civic actions. We're going to have marches. This is just the first march. Ayman Odeh promised a larger march a year from now. This is like the preliminary march. Right. So the idea is that we're not going to have enough power in Knesset. We're not going to be part of government. So what that means, we want to unite the Arab population and democratic parts of the Jewish population, and we're going to campaign on the streets. We're going for marches. So this is not only a statement of this is a topic we're going to bring into Knesset, but it's also a statement of we're going to be active on the ground, and we're going to give this government a hard time on the ground, not only from the opposition.
We're going to exercise our democratic rights, be it by foot or in buses. Chagai Matal, thank you so much for being with us this morning, and of course time will tell, but it is an exercise in democratic rights of people, by a large group in the opposition. Shedding light on it, thank you very much for being with us this morning. When we get back, something completely different. We look at what happens when godfathers, yes, godfathers turn into grandfathers. Stay with us, it's going to be fascinating. First of all, as in every morning, let's hear some more of this morning headlines. Welcome back. It is still Thursday, March 26, 2015. This is still the morning edition. Last I checked, I am still Yael Avi, and stay with us because we have an offer that you can't refuse. Okay, moving on to geriatric gangsters.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, 71-year-old Thomas DeFiore, that's not you, Professor Rockaway, was sentenced in Brooklyn federal court Tuesday to 21 months in prison for a loan shark. For loan sharking. Thank you. DeFiore, a reputed mob boss working with the Beduin. I hope I'm pronouncing this right because Banano.
Yeah, just like bananas.
Banano, okay, because my life depends on it. The Banano crime family attempted to have his sentence shortened, arguing that he was suffering from a litany of health issues, ranging from high blood pressure to skin swelling. The guy's old. The judge, however, was unconvinced. His case is an example of what happens when the romanticized mob world coincides with the real-world issues of health and aging. To discuss this further, we are ever so honored to be joined in studio by Professor Emeritus for the History Department at Tel Aviv University, Professor Robert Rockaway. Good morning.
Good morning
to you.
Good morning.
Also the author of, I'm holding this up, But He Was Good to His Mother. And you have to stick around to figure out what this title means. So let's first take a look at Danny Swibel's report and break it down from there.
Thugs, mobsters, godfathers, Goodfellas, and now Oldfellas. The possibility that snitches against the mob will face retaliation has dwindled in recent years, experts say. This because of the increased effectiveness of witness protection programs and the fear that a retaliation can provide a more powerful case against gangsters. This dynamic has allowed police investigators to target aging and at times elderly mafia leaders under the Federal Racketeering Act, under which major offenses, some perhaps decades old, can now yield new indictments. One such mafioso is 71-year-old Thomas DeFiore, a high-ranking member of the Bonanno crime family, who's remained free despite charges of assault, extortion, and even kidnapping. One of the other Bonanno heads, 80-year-old Vincent Acero, whose conversation about a loan payment with DeFiore was being recorded by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, also will, as they say in old crime dramas, face the music this fall, or to put it another way, be made an offer they can't refuse. Acero has been charged over the infamous 1978 Lufthansa heist at JFK Airport when the thieves got away with $5 million in cash and $1 million in jewelry. If this sounds familiar, it's because it served as the inspiration for Martin Scorsese's crime movie Goodfellas. These geriatric gangsters have been trying to use their age as part of their defense during their trials, detailing a long list of severe conditions they suffer from, as well as listing dozens of medications they must take per day. One even lifted up his pant legs to reveal his catheter bag. Prosecutors have grown familiar with such strategies, if not such sights, and claim some defendants appear to be exaggerating their medical problems in desperate bids for leniency.
For us, to live any other way was nuts.
I'm loving this. Professor Rockaway.
Yes.
Okay. Author of But He Was Good to His Mother as well. I gotta tell you, hold on, we're gonna turn this off. I gotta tell you, I love this. I love the title of your book, but you are familiar with stories as such.
Right.
Because you actually had the chance that not too many people in this world, especially those who, like me, can quote every three parts of The Godfather.
Right.
To sit with some of the world's most famous mobsters, gangsters, and interview them.
Right.
Right. Including, and this is my favorite, okay, including Meyer Lansky.
Yes.
Now, I want you to tell me a little bit how this came about. But, you know, not to make light of this, what happens to mobsters when they become grandfathers?
They're old, and they have grandchildren, and many of their children have gone to universities, and they're wonderful grandfathers.
Yeah.
Okay, but they just had a different kind of career. They had a different business that they were running. But they get old. They have ailments.
They're human, goddammit.
They're human.
Yeah.
They didn't exercise. They didn't eat properly.
No.
They drank too much. They had the high life when they were younger. And as you get older, your body, you know, you pay the price.
This makes me just remember the scene where they were, I think they're teaching him the young guy in Godfather 1 to make the pasta. You use a little sugar.
Right, a little sugar and fat, and right.
And don't forget to tell her you love her.
Right.
But you did sit with some of these,
yes.
you know, very famous people. Not DeFiore, which is a story that's breaking around the world.
No.
But you sat with some of them, and you said to me off camera before that they also lived a life where they didn't really. Some of them actually end up without much money at the end of the life. Like who? Give us a story.
Well, you know, the ones that I interviewed, Puri Hinkus, for example, he was a lieutenant in Abner Longies Williams' mob in New Jersey. Well, he had...
lieutenant, they actually
well,
give them ranks,
you know, I mean, I gave him the title.
Gotcha.
He was an associate, but one of the...
Okay.
Yeah, he was an associate. But, you know, he was in his late 80s, early 90s, and he ended up dying of cancer. They get the same diseases that other people get, as everyone else is. And the other men that I interviewed, they were all in their late 80s. Now, this is many years ago. They're all gone now.
Right.
Late 80s and early 90s. And people ask me, they say, weren't you afraid? I said, was I afraid? When I would come, they said, shut up, you guys, shut up, the professor from Israel's here. They were so thrilled to have someone come and talk to them about their old life. And when they spoke to me, what happened was that I taped them. Unfortunately, I couldn't bring the tapes because the machine that I had is not working.
Because it was a few years ago. Or
but I have a couple of transcripts.
Okay, I want one conversation.
Sure.
Tell us who that was.
Okay, this is about Abe Kid Twist Relis.
Kid Twist Relis. Yes. I love the nicknames.
Because he got the nickname because they said he would twist people's throats when he killed them. It's not twisting the chicken, it's this.
No.
So, now, you say to me, but do you believe them? Look, these are men who saw it or were there, which one of my stories, he was there, with Bugsy Siegel sitting naked in a barber chair, okay? I have that with me.
Right.
And this was told to me.
That image will not leave me for the rest of the day.
This was told to me by someone who said he was told about it. Now, do I believe him? How do I verify it? The only way to verify this, the person that they chopped up and got rid of, I mean, was it published in the newspaper? They found a body in sacks or a burned up body? Yeah. It's very difficult. So in writing about it, I quote them with quotation marks, and then I cite the source. But they're stories. It's like any story. Do you believe everything you read in the newspaper? Do you believe every, you know, of course not. But they were so funny and some of them interesting. And when I was taping them, on the tapes you can hear me laughing, and they're laughing. I mean, I'm giggling all the time. It's just terrific.
And Twisted Pinky, what's his name? Twisted...
Abe, be nice. Abe Kid Twist Relis, who ended up being thrown out of the Half Moon Hotel.
He's no longer alive, right?
No, he was thrown out of the hotel. He was going to testify to the police.
Yeah.
And he was guarded by police. And it just so happened that there was a thump at 3 o'clock in the morning on the side of the hotel, and the clerk didn't go out. I mean, a thump 3 in the morning, what am I going to go out for? And in the morning, they found his body. Now, there was a sheet hanging from his window. Now, he was supposed to have been guarded by police, right? He was hanging, the sheet was hanging, and if you're going to jump out of a hotel room, you're close, gravity pulls you close to the wall. He was some feet away from the wall, which indicates someone threw him out, and he died and wasn't able to testify. Now, Lucky Luciano said, cost us $50,000 to get rid of this guy, and then someone else said, well, the canary could sing, means tell stories, but he couldn't fly. So, I mean, you've got this. They killed him.
And, no, we get it.
But this is a story about him, one of the stories.
Yeah, no, quickly one. Yeah, what does he say?
I'll read this. Okay, he says, well, all right, Kid Twist and a friend of his are walking in Brownsville, which is a suburb of Brooklyn, and a fellow comes up to Kid Twist and they mention a name, and he says, do you know if Angelo hangs around here? And Kid Twist says, yeah, he hangs around here, but he says, I don't know where he is. But would you like to leave a message? And he says, yeah, tell him Johnny was here. In the meantime, Kid Twist had a contract to kill this guy, Johnny. And he was looking for Johnny, and all of a sudden this Johnny shows up. So this was a Friday night, and Kid Twist used to go to his mother's house every Friday night for dinner. Nice Jewish boy, right? So he was with a friend of his, and the friend of his was Bugsy Goldstein, by the way. I got that.
Yeah.
So he said to this fella, Johnny, why don't you come up to the house and have something to eat? You know, Jew food, Friday night. Right, Jew food, okay? So maybe we could run into your friend. So they went to his house, the three of them, all right? The mother made dinner, all three of them, and then Kid Twist, Relis, sent his mother to the movies, all right? Then they took this fella, they knocked him out, dragged him into the bathroom, chopped him up, okay? Chopped him up, They chopped him up, put him in a, I don't want to use the word that he used, a F bag, F bag, and that was the end of him. And then they took the body out, Goldstein took it and burnt it. Okay.
But I want to tell you, he got a really nice dinner.
Oh, yeah, before he was killed.
Nice dinner. Yeah.
And then he said, that's the truth. This is really a true story.
Listen,
and then he said, although he became a F stool pigeon, that dirty bastard, that son of a bitch, he's talking about railroads. That I know, okay.
Yeah. Professor Rockaway, you're locked in studio with us.
I have to be careful, yes.
No, you're locked in studio with us, and I do think...
Twist is here.
I'm
just saying.
Twister Heinrich, and that I promise you that if I ever am out and set to kill you, I will give you matzo ball soup first.
Oh, yeah, so many Jewish names.
This is fabulous. And really quickly, the book is But He Was Good to His Mother. That was Professor Rockaway. Tal Heinrich, take it away.
I'm always trying to pick my items like very light, you know, for morning shows, and then somebody comes here and talks about chopping people. Well, all right, I know you don't like...
This is the viral that is the web review. We were all enthralled.
Yeah. So I know you're not really following the NBA. I don't know about you, Professor, but you're probably familiar with Omri Caspi, right? The first Israeli that made it to the NBA.
The professor is, I'm nodding.
So Omri Caspi, he plays now for the Sacramento Kings, and last Sunday they had a game against the Washington Wizards. The Wizards lost, but Paul Pierce decided to push Caspi away. He was driving to the rim, and he pushed him, and Caspi was flying into a little girl. Let's take a look.
Let's take a look. Let's see what's happened.
Hopefully everybody's okay underneath that basket.
Yeah. She couldn't stop trying. And Omri was so nice. Take a look at what he did. He met the girl after the game. He bought her a present, and then he posted it on his Facebook page. Let's take a look if we have the picture again. He said, had to make sure she's not mad at me after I crashed her during the game. And what's a better gift than Princess Elsa and Olaf from Frozen, right?
Of course, my God.
This is an NBA player who knows the job, you know? This is what you should do.
It's not his fault, though.
It's not his fault.
It's Paul Pierce, actually. He should have bought it.
Exactly, and this is an NBA player who knows his Disney.
Exactly.
The game was a rough game.
Pierce got a flagrant foul.
That is true.
And I want to stick with the Sacramento Kings for another minute, because if kids weren't crying because players were flying into them, they would have cried because of the next video I'm going to show you. This is a baby race at the Sacramento Kings.
Oh my Lord! Let's do it. We have the video. Let's have a look.
On your marks, get set, go!
Now the parents have brought in their secret weapons, Fresh.
Yes, that's right.
Bottles, stuffed animals, whatever they can get.
Wait a minute! Here comes Nathan!
Nathan is on the move!
It's cute, right?
That's sick! That is sick!
Can you imagine yourself trying to convince your baby like a crazy mom?
What happened in Australia?
No.
Well, they had a contest who could throw a dwarf the furthest. I'm telling you the truth. This is about 6 years ago, and people watched it. You know, dwarf throwing.
Okay, I'll have to find the video.
No, well, it's there.
I'll have to find the video.
And the dwarfs protest. They said, "We make money from this. Why are they protesting? We don't mind them throwing us."
I'll bring it.
I'll bring it. But I'm looking at that and I'm horrified. But then the other thought, my other trail of thought is, my 9-month-old. Can I make money on him?
Maybe.
Terrible.
He would win that. No, that's awful. That's just awful. That's ridiculous.
All
yes.
Right, now staying a bit with sports and athletes, David Beckham. You know him. I mean,
even I know David Beckham.
Exactly.
Yes.
So he's married to one of the hottest designers, Victoria Beckham. She's a designer. She has like a jeans line
and a former Spice Girl, and she should eat something.
He revealed that 99% of the time she's the one who's deciding upon what is going to wear.
As she should.
Yes, but it's interesting, you know, coming from David Beckham, who is a fashion icon himself. He actually revealed this title, thing in the launch of his new H&M menswear collection.
Professor Rockaway, you're a married man. Don't you let your wife pick everything you wear?
No.
Wow.
I sometimes ask, but I have decent taste. I mean, which tie?
Which that can end, but that it ends.
Do we have time for
we have one quick one.
Okay, because we talked about clothes. Now let's take them off. This is what you should do if you're going to the National Gallery of Australia, because there's an exhibition there in which 50 people per session walk in naked, and then you can view the gallery and
you have what? It's a nudist. It's a nudist exhibition.
It's a new exhibition by
and in order to
artist
enter it, what, you're going to have to take your clothes off?
I don't know.
Well,
I mean, yes, you should take it off, and then you walk, and then you put it
okay.
on
And
again.
I got to tell you, you're going to have to fly there and check it out yourself for us and come back with a report completely. Now, do stay with us. When we get back, something completely different. Comic heroines are the next 20 things. We will tell you all about it and what it means. You got to stay. So stay with us. First, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Good morning, I-24 News Morning Edition on this March 26, 2015. The place to be, wow. The place to be, yes, to be saved by two men, one of them being Daniel Roth of The Economy magazine, and the other one being Avri Tzvi Rosen, you see.
That's why I asked me.
Avri Tzvi Rosen of The Culture magazine. Two men highly intelligent saving a very tired woman. So, Daniel Roth, we're going to start with you.
This is the place to be.
This is to be. Touche. Okay. But Daniel, what do you have for us today?
India's water shortage is the focus, but there's new reports out that say that we're doomed, essentially.
Okay.
New reports say we're doomed.
Doom and destruction. Let's take a look at the report first of doom and destruction on this morning show and break it down from there. Let's have a look.
World Water Day took place over the weekend, and around the world, droughts have been taking a toll on cities and countryside alike, from LA to Australia and Brazil to Taiwan. The constant creep of climate change is causing havoc in water systems, leaving drinking and sewage in trouble. In India, decades of population growth and urbanization and a lack of piping systems is leading to a water crisis, as the country's water supply is expected to drop to below 50% of what is needed by 2030, according to the World Resources Institute in Washington. Many rely on deliveries of water, which may not last as a solution.
We had ponds which used to be fed naturally by rain, but the construction of concrete roads and so on obstructed the water flow. As a result, the underground water table has fallen.
In Delhi, the chief minister has promised free water to residents, but population growth means shortages are a reality. And meanwhile, private water mafias are selling water at a premium. Beyond promises, activists are pushing the government to do more amid slow and sometimes corrupt bureaucracies, according to the AFP report.
The water bodies need to be revived, they're deepened, widened, their capacity must be improved, and a woodland must be maintained around them to ensure a fresh purity of water.
As populations grow, a UN report is highlighting over-extraction of groundwater, particularly in India and China, as a major risk to sustainability. The report says 20% of global groundwater is already overdrawn, and the only solution is better management, presumably with public accountability.
But Daniel Roth, to be serious about this for a minute, India, clearly this is, how bad are we looking at when we're looking at this crisis? This report basically says that there's what?
The report basically says things can get better if management is put in, if water management is put in, and that there's public accountability. So there's a number of problems. One of them is you have these small private gangs essentially selling water because there's not enough piping.
Right. Yeah, organized water crime. Yeah.
And water is at the base of life, so you need it. It's not like gambling where maybe you can.
No. Yeah, I think we can all agree that when it comes to water, without that, nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's that's number one. Number two is that the systems aren't in place in India, and in an enormous number of, about a quarter of people live in countries that have poor or weak governance. So that's not to say that strong governance necessarily equals water management. Here in Israel, there's a lot of wasted water, even though it's a strongly organized system. Right. But in India, these are the main problems. It's the management first and foremost. And when you're talking from an economic perspective or from an environmental perspective, which are the only two perspectives, they're actually not two perspectives. They're one. When you invest in water systems, when you invest for every $1 invested in sewage and water piping systems, you get $5 return on investment. So it's not only good for growth on an economic level, it's good for the environment.
Yeah, good for the environment. But when the report says, there are things that can be done, or else does it give a timeline? Where is it heading in the most catastrophic way? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
The most catastrophic scenario is that sewage systems aren't put in place to recycle water, and water is taken out without any kind of thought down the road. We were just saying during the VTR that in LA they have a year left potentially. Exactly. And this is a place with strong governance also. The worst case scenario is that we will see water systems, public water systems, cease to work, and people will have to buy water from companies that's not piped. And that the piped water that we, at least in the Western world, have come to rely on in places like Europe and North America, will not be reliable anymore.
It's very interesting in light of recent remarks by Nestle CEO or head honcho there that he doesn't think water is like a basic right for human beings, and they're trying to buy.
They're trying to buy. In Canada, they're selling him. They're selling Nestle for next to nothing, enormous amounts of what was known as crown land, what was known as public land. So, I mean, we're talking down the road when we start seeing cities really running out of water. We're talking some years down the road, but it's not so far off. If you look at Brazil,
we're not talking hundreds and hundreds of years down the road.
No. We're talking right now. Brazil is facing this now. Right now, LA and California are facing this now. We're talking about around the world.
It's a place where I think we all can agree, and I'm going to put this in simple terms. They can probably overcome it, or find solutions, as you said, strong governance. Right. In places like India, in other places around the world, when they get to that situation, we're looking at the aftermath of what? I mean, this is the start of wars. This is where everything becomes chaos if people run out of water and it's in the wrong hands. Okay.
Absolutely.
So the world should take notice. A mechanism in place we don't know about. Frightening thought, but it is doom and destruction. But what is India doing about it?
So far, Narendra Modi, who's the current PM, he's focused more on growth, has made some comments about environmental issues like water, but focused primarily on growth. Now, there are more local governments. Chief Minister of Delhi is focused on this.
Just on that.
There are people focused on it, but overall right now, though there are officials saying this is a national crisis, it's not become a national focus.
Right. Which it should.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which it definitely should.
Yes.
Daniel Roth, locked in studio, thank you for that bit of very depressing information. But no. Economy Magazine, what time every day?
7:40.
7:40. Do watch, because it's important stories as such that everybody needs to listen to. It's not just the wars that we inflict upon ourselves, but also on the planet, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Amen to that. Moving on to death and destruction and culture. No, just kidding. I'm
really depressed now.
I know, I'm sad.
No, because it's like, when are we gonna sit up and listen? Global warming, water shortages. It's like in 10 years, just all the prime ministers are gonna say, "I quit. There's nothing to do."
You know that millions of years ago, the dinosaurs were sitting around a table like this, going, "When are we gonna listen?" And they didn't. But now, I think you can make us laugh.
That's history.
That's history.
That's history. You know?
It is history. Begs to be repeated.
Fact. Well, before I make you laugh, I just want a quick plug, shameless plug. Yesterday we had a wonderful show with Robert Krulwich from Radiolab, who was in Israel for a radio conference. You can watch it on reruns today.
Amen.
And on the web.
And I shall, so should you. Okay.
Okay, now we're talking about James Corden, who took over the Late Late Show just 2 days ago, 3 days ago, 2 days ago. And
he took it over from who was before him was the
he took it over from Craig Ferguson, who I loved very much.
Yes, me too.
I loved Craig very much, and it's a very strange choice. James Corden. He's 36 years old, another Brit. He was Scottish,
Scottish and Brits. Like the Late Late Show, that's where they put in the United States. You know, let's just stick them all the Brits on the Late Show.
He's an actor. He's never done something like that. He rose to prominence in Britain because he wrote a show called Gavin and Stacey, who we co-created, a very funny show.
Yes.
And he's kind of a face we know. He's been in the History Boys, both on stage and on film, when he was younger.
But he's not me, goddammit. Yeah.
Let's watch a little bit of his opening monologue and
break it down from there. Let's have a look.
I really couldn't be more honoured to be stood here talking to you now. And believe me, however shocked you are that I am doing this job, you will never be as shocked as I am. I promise you we're going to have fun on this show, and I promise we're going to do everything we can to put a smile on your face before, or let's be honest, more likely whilst you fall asleep at night.
He's very sweet.
No, I was about to say, it's like,
very cordial.
I know, I am so
Give
sorry.
Me a chance. Give me a chance, please. It was the first show, he's like,
cute.
It's very sweet. I always thought of late night as something for the shark, but, you know, we already have like a sweet guy on television. It's Jimmy Fallon right now at The Tonight Show. He's also sweet. I don't know. He tries. You know, they
Ferguson,
had.
I mean, the one thing I'll give you that Ferguson. You said late night on American television that the entire world usually knows about or watches. It's really late night. It's where you know it is biting. It's where all the kids are asleep because kids could stay up for the Late Show, but they're already in bed there. You can be biting. You can be more sarcastic.
He was very strange. He had a very strange show.
He's in shock.
James Corden is finding his footing. He did a bit with Tom Hanks in his first show, which was sort of repeating his movie. It was funny, but it was way too long. But you know, we talked about water. Corden had a bit two nights ago in his second show where he was like, he did like a 6-7 minute bit about like, we have 1 year of water. 2 years ago, we had 2 years of water, so we were right on schedule. And he was like, I just moved here. I don't want me and my kids to die. So, you know, he did do something that sort of you wouldn't see, I guess, on other things. I think they're trying, everyone is trying to take a note from John Oliver, another Brit, taking over American television.
The British are actually taking over American television. Yeah, maybe
and
the
movies.
Egyptians will take over Israeli television. Yes.
But you know, we're gonna give him a shot. He did put Reggie Watts as the head of his band, who is a very strange, very funny man. Do you know Reggie Watts? He's the black guy with the big hair. So they are trying to do something, and you know, the person in charge of the Late Late Show and who produces it is David Letterman. So I would give him, you know, the benefit of the doubt to say that he vetted this guy and he knows what he's doing.
He knows he's trying, and you know what? I mean, Avri. When people came to me and said, try this guy, Avri Rosentzvi, I was like, I don't know.
And you're still not sure to this day.
Exactly. So we're giving you a chance.
We're still trying. We're in it a year and a half.
What do you think, Daniel? Should we have him on TV?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So
not British, but I can affect a British accent.
And moving along.
Okay, we're moving along from that. We're talking about comic books again, but a subject that's close to all of our hearts. Feminism.
Amen.
Maybe feminism.
Close
we
to
don't
all
know.
Our hearts. Maybe.
Yeah. No, maybe feminism.
Okay.
We're not sure if it's feminism or curiosity, but a few months ago, Marvel launched its female Thor. And
finally.
And in the first 5 issues, are selling 30% more than the male Thor. People want to see a female superhero, and she looks fierce.
She looks fierce and hot. And yeah, amen.
So they've been selling, they sold.
And I will bet you also it's not just 30% more than, men. It's probably
crowds.
Also men.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, but let's face it, she's a hot chick.
She is
she's a hot chick with metal bras.
Yeah.
So
which I like to wear when I go out to fight crime. It sold 150,000 copies.
Wow.
Which is very nice. It remains to be seen if it's just a fad or if it'll keep on having strong sales. Jason Aaron, the writer of this, said that he thinks it's sort of normal to have female superheroes. It's like
we don't have enough of them, and I do think back in my childhood, it was Wonder Woman that was actually quite successful. So and also something with a metal bra. No, that was
she did have sort of a weird brassiere thing going. But the Marvel are thinking that it might be a trend, and they're launching sort of a whole female superhero team sort of to rival the Avengers in the next few months.
As they should, because I do think that actually, that will progress feminism
maybe.
to a level.
Now, another female superhero has been making sort of a scandal, which is Batgirl. One of the recent issues of Batgirl had an variant cover, which is an alternate cover. It's a thing in comic books where you have the main cover, and then you have a couple more covers. And this month they had the Joker on all of the company's covers, and people have been calling this cover misogynist, and they've been calling it like a threat of violence to women, and the company responded by taking it down, and then people cried this is censorship. So there was like a whole kerfuffle.
That feminism and women's issues have entered the comics. I think that's actually the highlight. It's true. It's a good thing.
I think that the fact that we're talking about it and that people are actually aware of it is surely a good thing.
Amen. Okay, and that was it for us today, though. Us and our metal bras that confused me a bit. Don't forget to watch us tomorrow. I-24 News Morning Edition. You can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, all those social networks, and of course, tune in tomorrow morning for another edition. This was The One Today. Have a wonderful day.